Well, good evening, good morning to some of you who are watching it in the morning. Good afternoon for any of you watching in the afternoon. Anyhow, thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. I'll quickly remind all of you who asked for those diagrams from last week that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And if I can answer, I will. And if I can't, I'll find out the answers for you. Now, I've got to say, it's great to be back in my lair. I've missed it. And I see Rocky over there has made it back also without Mr. Peabody, but it's great to have Rocky back. And our good friend Baruch had asked how I had the time to do all the things that I do. And I guess the best answer I have is, I don't know. However, I do know that I forgot to attach this week's audio show with the audio email that went out earlier. And as you can see, I certainly don't have a lot of time to get my hair cut. But as a Nazarite, I have an out. I have a coming soon for the video presentation that I did not put in the audio one. Next week, we will be making preparation to celebrate Jewish Valentine's Day. And I bet most of you didn't know that there was one. And in the coming week, I will be seeing two of my favorite people and taking a brief trip to the Cave of Wonders. And I do hope that my good friend Ginger gets the rest that she so desperately needs and wants. Friends, this is a special Torah portion for me. People remember certain things, and thank you, Rachael, for that amazing lesson in cognitive recall. Apparently, we remember more from the ages of 12 to 14 than any other time in our lives. And while I can't remember why I was telling you that, people do remember certain things from the Torah for certain reasons. Most remember their bar or bat mitzvah parshas. Some even remember their wedding ones. Less do, because it's actually rarely a part of the wedding ceremony. Most remember the High Holy Day ones because, for many, those are the only days that they continue to go to temple throughout all of the years, and they are the same ones every year. But friends, this was my ordination parsha, and so it is a little extra special for me. In fact, it's pretty special to me, and I'll talk more about that later. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Who remembers that saying? Do you remember that? Friends, forget about sticks and stones. Words are the most powerful tools for good and for bad in the world. Welcome to Devarim, the words, Deuteronomy. Devarim is both the title for the last book from the 5 books of Moses, or the Torah, as it's come to be called, and the title of the first Torah portion therein. And we've talked about the names of the books and the names of the parshas and where they come from. Devarim means words, but we call this book Deuteronomy. Remember, the Hebrew title for the book comes from the opening phrase of the book. These are the words, Devarim, which Moses spoke to all Israel across the Jordan in the wilderness. And it is the Devarim, Devar Torah, that you listen to me blather on about every week, the words of the Torah. As we were told in Rubber Soul, say the word and you'll be free. Say the word and be like me. Give the word a chance to say that the word is just the way. One of the ancient names for the book of Deuteronomy was Mishnah HaTorah, which means repetition of the Torah. And friends, that gives you a great idea as to what this book is going to be about. This is similar to the Greek Septuagint name Deuteronomos, which means second law. And so you see where our English name Deuteronomy is derived from Deuteronomos. And we've talked about how the English name is derived from the topic and not from the opening phrase. So forewarned is forearmed. You're going to be hearing a retelling of the Torah. The book of Deuteronomy is dominated by Moses' farewell address to the children of Israel as he urges them to remain faithful to the covenant, and he prepares them for entering Canaan. During the course of the book, Moses reviews the story of the giving of the Torah at Sinai and the trip to the Promised Land. He reiterates several laws, and he introduces new laws. But it's more than that. Friends, this is the single thread that links past, present, and future together. It is by the words, by Moses saying, "As I said to you at that time." He's speaking to a generation that wasn't there, as if it was. And then when whoever reads it throughout time, it's as if they are being talked to. And so we were all there. And this is forever. Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither wildly as they slip away across the universe. The establishment of that equivalence is through the words employed. Equivalence between the convocation that Moses addresses, which of course includes us, and the defining one at Sinai, oft referred to as Yom HaKahal, or Day of Assembly, all of whom were dead. As Maimonides said, the Jewish people did not believe in Moses because of the miracles he performed. If one believes in something because of miracles, he may suspect that they were performed through sleight of hand or sorcery. We believe in Moses because of what happened at Mount Sinai. Our own eyes saw, not a stranger's. Our own ears heard, and not another's. The revelation at Sinai is the only real proof that Moses' prophecy was true and above suspicion. Our eyes, our ears. Friends, Numbers ended with commandments, and Deuteronomy begins with words. And remember, words are palpable. They are real. They have life. They have an energy of creation. The Gospel of John begins, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Creation was from the Word. The distance that we've come from Genesis is enormous. This entire book is a group of youths listening to an old man talk. No angels, no miracles, no splitting seas. How do you calculate the distance between 2 points? With numbers you use Pythagoras, with the Torah you can't. Things have changed, and changed a lot. We have watched a man go from saying to God at the burning bush that he couldn't go to Pharaoh because he's not a man of words, to becoming a man of words. From a man with a heavy mouth to one of eloquence. We watched a set of commandments given with no explanation now become a book of why. And so the Torah concludes with the message that the law is meant to be meaningful and relevant in people's lives. And for that to happen, it must be subject to interpretation. It is there to enhance lives. This is unlike the previous 4 books of the Torah. This is a book of rhetoric, and rhetoric is an art of persuasion. And the rhetoric of this book is to persuade a subsequent audience of the authoritative reality of an event which may or may not have occurred as represented. And it may have been the once missing book that changed the course of Judaism. This book pictures the last of the events of the wilderness as their leader is about to die. Moses pleads with God to let him live to cross over, but he's told not to speak of it anymore, and there is a fascinating twisting of previously told tales as shifts take place in the parallel stories. As he retells the story of the Exodus, there's no mention of either the plagues or the splitting of the Red Sea. And the entire Decalogue, with some minor variations, becomes non-visual, just auditory. based only on words, not on visions. God writes the 10 words in stone and then designates Moses to expound the laws, not just the Decalogue, the code of laws. What was the book of the covenant in Exodus is now a book of laws that require explanation. And so he is to be'er, make clear, a term occurring only twice in the Torah, here and then towards the end of the speech. And friends, this little verb becomes the central rationale for the book. The teaching, or Torah, is represented as needing further explanation. The meaning of Torah is beginning to shift. It is going to go from being a verbal noun, meaning teaching, which is what Deuteronomy was, to becoming the entire 5 books of Moses as they're now known today. And as the Tanakh continues, God becomes more and more hidden and distant over the course of history, and the acts of God are replaced by the words of God. By his grace I have been touched, by his word I have been healed, by his hand I've been delivered, by his spirit I've been sealed. Thank you, Bob. The first great leader who began as an unknown quantity at the burning bush has been exposed more than any other biblical figure to scrutiny. And in analyzing Moses, we are analyzing ourselves. He is the mirror of self that we all look into. The regular human being with weaknesses, temper, fears, and flaws, who becomes the leader of a nation, the spokesperson of God, and the founder of a faith that plays a role in the destiny of man. We see in him that he is a demonstration that we all can change. Professions, values, character, and lifestyle. We can grow. We can become stronger, become better. Words, friends. Watch the words. You may be thrown for a loop when you hear him say they are 11 days from Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai. That 11-day journey to the promised land took 40 years. You think about it differently when you realize how close they were. How close have you been to your promised land? This juxtaposition of 11 days and 40 years, it forces us to contemplate the irony, the waste, the suffering, the growth, the need for a new generation to outgrow a trauma of mammoth proportion, just as we are in the generation subsequent to an even greater trauma, the Holocaust, in which its psychological effects still afflict us all. And Moses says and continues to say over and over again, I said to you at that time, to people who weren't there. A brilliant means of mixing past, present, and future generations, so the message is applicable for each succeeding generation who reads it. And you see, friends, the Torah will end as it begins, and your children who haven't known good and bad, they will come there, and I'll give it to them, and they will possess it. In Genesis, man acquired knowledge of good and bad and began the descent from perfection. Knowledge of good and bad is tied up with life and death. The wilderness generation had that knowledge. And only the children, those who don't yet know the difference, they are the ones who will be allowed to enter. When you read this parsha, you may not see a lot of this. Instead, you may think that you're only reading about King Sihon and the giant King Og and the cities of Bashan and Heshbon and the descendants of Esau. The Torah is a fantastic mystery that needs to be interpreted in each generation. It needs to be relevant in your generation. Just as Passover must be told in each generation for each generation as a lesson in freedom and not as a history of freedom. This was a fantastic parsha to be ordained to. It's the word I'm thinking of, and the only word is love. It's so fine, it's sunshine. It's the word love. Thank you, friends, for joining me. It's always great seeing you, hearing from you. Be well, be happy, be aware. Let's pray for peace in Israel and in our lives. And if you know anyone in need of healing or love, send them some energy. Love you all. See you next time. I've got some weddings coming up, and I'm really looking forward to them. And I'm always looking forward to doing the next show and reading your emails. Love you. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great one, friends. Look forward to seeing you. Be well. Take care. Bye.